Hello, BookTube. Well, I'm way too excited to go just quietly back to reading. So I thought as long as I'm up and active and got the lights on in here in the little book room, that I would make another library tour, another shelf of the library tour. This will be a quick one. It has big books, so there are fewer of them, and it's got two books on the shelf facing out. So we'll do those first. And the first one is another guide to Venice. I've encountered quite a few of those. This is from 1914. This is Evie Lucas, who did a lot of books like this. This is A Wanderer in Venice, and it's much like the stuff that this one has color illustrations, but it's much like the volumes that we've seen so far, which is just it's just an anecdotal guide to Venice. It's all the the heroic, the romantic gondoliers and the stories of Byron and whatnot. It's all the standard boilerplate that travelers were expected to digest before they went on their trip to Venice 100 years ago. I don't know why I have so many of these books. I mean, I love Venice. It's my second favorite city in the world, but you'd think that I have a lot of books on Venice of a lot of different kinds. You'd think this would be the kind that I wouldn't have, but I do apparently have quite a few of them. I'll have to, again, as I mentioned before, library tours help to change that. They help to shift the topography. If you're doing it right, they help to shift the topography of what you're looking at. Then this next one, the next one that faces out, belongs somewhere else. It belongs in the previous bookcase, and it's James Woolcott, and it's Critical Mass, a collection of essays and reviews. So I mean, it's here in this miscellany, but it really belongs in the previous bookcase. I will have to put all of those together at some point, maybe not this morning. Then we have a huge novel in danger of getting cocked and of cocking others. And this is Lonesome Dove. This is a big hardcover of Lonesome Dove. Sorry, I'm periodically blocking the bean, who's the only thing you're interested in. This is a big hardcover of Larry McMurtry's great novel, and I intentionally raised questions about it myself, because I got on Book Depository, I got a beautiful trade paperback of Lonesome Dove that we used for our read along. So, do I need both? I don't know that I do. Am I waiting until Lonesome Dove is in Penguin Classics? Yes, I am. And when it comes out in Penguin Classics, will I get a copy of it, even though I have maybe 2, maybe 3 other editions? Probably. I probably will. This is not a very healthy thing. This is a sickness. Then this next one is from, I think, 50 years ago. I think this is 50 years ago. Yeah, this is 50 years ago. This is Stories from the New Yorker. The New Yorker is cropped up in one way or another in all of these library tours, almost every shelf. I'm a big fan of the New Yorker, the magazine. I'm a big fan of all the compilations. I'm a big fan of a lot of the writers who were staples in the New Yorker. And this is a collection of New Yorker stories. And it's interesting in its own right, but it's also interesting in that it reflects the editorial sensibilities of 50 years ago. So it's fascinating in both a literary and a meta way. I periodically go through here and settle down, especially with the writers who have not gone on to be famous or to stay famous. There are quite a few in here that maybe in 1960 people thought, a bright and big future lies in store for you, and then it didn't happen. And I find those authors fascinating. But anyway, then we've got the shelf proper with no cocking, and it is full of either big books or big books in series. You see what I mean? This is Black Lizard books. They do the big book of whatever it is. They do a whole bunch of things, and they're often so enjoyable. And this is no exception. This is the big book of ghost stories. And look at that cover. And that's all this is. These things they're printed in double columns, like old pulp magazines, and they're often full of old pulp authors. This will be for every M.R. James and Henry James story, for every famous ghost story in here, there'll be a dozen that aren't famous. And again, those are incredibly fascinating for me. I have a couple of different big fat ghost story anthologies in this room, even though, of course, there's no such thing as ghosts. So, and then the next three are something we've already seen. In fact, we've seen it recently on this channel. This is the old quality paperback book club edition of Alan Mandelbaum's translation of the Divine Comedy. All three volumes are heavily illustrated, and all three are bilingual. And unlike with a lot of them, the Italian is given pride of place in the way the Western eye looks at the page. The Italian is given the front-facing page, and the English is where anyway these are incredible. I think these are just an amazing edition of Dante, and I have had them in many formats. I had there was a mass market paperback that was very popular of this trilogy. I even had a box set one Christmas, and I find that I like these big trade paperbacks best. And just the other day I found a second copy of the Inferno, which is great because these things are beautiful, but they're not all that durable. And the hardcover version of them they're a little too heavy. They're a little too ornate. I know I'm a very fussy, but when it comes to the little book room, I am fussy. I'm not otherwise, because the books are going to come and go. But if a book is going to lodge it's going to live in this room, then I am going to be fussy about it. And that's why I was happy to find a double of the Inferno. I'm hoping that I will find doubles of Purgatorio and Paradiso as well, so I can just read the heck out of them without worrying that it's going to fall apart. Although I think somewhere in this room I also have a 1-volume Mandelbaum without the illustrations, so I'm good either way. And once again, I would very much like it if the Mandelbaum Divine Comedy were the Penguin Classic. That would be fantastic. Penguin often, if they can, will go straight for the best popular translation of something that they can get. I don't think it gets any better than Mandelbaum, and yet they have a couple of others. They have 2 other Divine Comedies, but not his. Okay, then we have 2 big books by Katherine Graham, the legendary publisher of the Washington Post and Society matron, Washington Society matron. First one is her great book, Personal History, which is her memoir, and which was long awaited, and it is fantastic. It was well worth the wait. It is dry and wise and quotable. It is very, very good. And she also did a companion volume that I confess is a little bit of heresy here, because we all waited for her memoir. I confess I like this book even more. This is Katherine Graham's Washington, which is full of it's not her. It's she assembled a whole bunch of essays, glimpses, profiles, that sort of thing, of a glittering Washington that is no more. And I know I spent time in Washington. I once upon a time lived in Washington, and I got to know that side of Washington, believe it or not. When I was there, I was not reading all day long in my house. I was a slightly different Steve, and I got to know that social Washington, and it was a charmed place, and it's captured in this book in a way that I don't know that I've seen it captured anywhere else, and it's gone. That Washington, that particular social Washington, is gone. That after-hours Washington, and I love reading about it. So these 2 go together for me. And then the last book on the shelf, see, it's less than 10 minutes because there's so few books, because they're all so huge. The last one is a truly gorgeous thing. Barnes & Noble does a series of leather-bound classics, and they're genuinely good. I mean, it's a fantastic line. If you wanted a really beautiful library of canonical classics and even some non-canonical stuff, you couldn't do much worse. You couldn't do much better than to get these Barnes & Noble editions. And they have extended their line to, I mean, famously, there was a Star Trek volume. And they've been a whole bunch of other things, too. Jurassic Park, John Carter of Mars. And I was overjoyed when this one came out. This came out 10 years ago. This is the Bible. This is the King James Bible. Look at how beautiful that is. Just look at how lovely that is. And it is the King James Bible, and it has all of the Gustave Doré engravings, not just some. Most Bibles will have, for instance, if they're going to have Gustave Doré at all, they will have the very first one, and God said, "Let there be light." Let me point that out to you. Most will have something like that, but they won't have them all. And once upon a time, a long time ago, Dover, Thrift Editions, Dover published a book entirely of the engravings, but you didn't have the verses, you didn't have the book with it. This is a gorgeous Bible, just amazing. And these Barnes & Noble editions sell for $20 or $25. Sometimes they're discounted for members or whatnot. They are amazing to have. And this one is by far my favorite. I know that's a little heretical because one of them is Star Trek, but this is by far my favorite. It's a Bible that you can beat up on it. It has the gilt pages, has a built-in bookmark, and it has this gorgeous design and my favorite biblical illustrator. So that's a fine note to end on. So we end on that note. That is this next shelf of this library tour. So I have now made 2 videos before the sun is properly up over the trees in the back. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my day. Maybe I'll work. That'd be nice. But I'm going to wrap this up. And I just realized I set up the camera once again so that I have to boarding house reach to get to turn it off. But I will be back. I guess maybe later in the day I could do another library tour. There's no reason not to do 2. Jason does sometimes 3 in one day. And we have a lot more books to cover, so it's not like we're going to run out anytime soon. But maybe there are other things to do as well. So I will wrap this up, and I will see you later. Thank you, Book 2.